You are standing on the bridge of one of the largest moving objects ever built by human hands. The ocean stretches flat and dark ahead of you, and somewhere out there, invisible until it is too late, is a wall of ice. You give the order, full astern, stop the ship, and nothing happens. Not for a long, long time. That is the moment most people think they understand. They picture a car hitting the brakes. They imagine friction, deceleration, a screech of resistance. But a ship is not a car. A ship does not brake. A ship surrenders, slowly, reluctantly, on its own terms, to the physics it was built to ignore. And understanding why changes everything you thought you knew about the night of April 14th, 1912. Start with mass. Not weight in the everyday sense, but the kind of mass that makes the numbers absurd. The RMS Titanic displaced approximately 52,000 tons of seawater. Displacement is the weight of water a hull pushes aside just by existing in it. When naval architect Thomas Andrews drew the Titanic's lines in the Belfast shipyard, he was designing a hull that would move through water at 21 knots while carrying that impossible weight. And momentum, the product of mass times velocity, does not care about your intentions. It only cares about the math. At 21 knots, which is roughly 24 miles per hour, a ship the size of the Titanic carries kinetic energy comparable to a freight train traveling at full speed. The difference is the medium it moves through. A train rides steel on steel, a ship rides steel on water, and water, despite feeling soft when you fall into it from a low height, is nearly incompressible. It does not yield the way air does. Pushing 52,000 tons of steel through it requires enormous sustained force, and stopping that mass requires absorbing all of that energy somewhere. Where does it go? That is the question engineers have wrestled with since the age of steam. On a car, you press the brake pedal, brake pads clamp against rotors, friction converts kinetic energy into heat, the car slows in meters. On a ship, there are no brake pads, there is no rotor. There is only the propeller, the rudder, and the water itself. And reversing a massive steam-powered propeller at full speed is not a simple instruction. It is a mechanical event that takes time, significant time. First Officer William Murdoch gave the order to reverse engines at approximately 11:40 p.m. The Titanic's engineers, working deep in the hull, had to reduce steam to the forward turbines, engage astern motion on the reciprocating engines, and redirect enormous mechanical forces through a drivetrain under full load. The ship's 3 propellers, 2 wing screws, and 1 center turbine responded at different rates. The center turbine could not run in reverse at all. Only the 2 outer wing screws could be reversed, and reversing them while the ship was still moving forward created something the popular story almost never mentions. It killed the rudder. A ship's rudder works by redirecting water flow. Water flowing past the hull under forward momentum creates pressure against the rudder blade, and that pressure steers the bow left or right. When you reverse the outer propellers, you interrupt that flow. You reduce the pressure on the rudder precisely when you need it most. The ship becomes harder to steer at the moment steering matters most. Murdoch's decision to reverse engines, the instinct that any driver would have had, may have reduced the Titanic's ability to turn away from the Iceberg. Some naval historians, including researchers who revisited the incident using modern fluid dynamics modeling, have argued that the Titanic might have avoided the iceberg entirely if Murdoch had maintained forward speed and turned hard without reversing. The rudder would have been fully effective, the bow might have cleared, but that is the counterintuitive truth of ship handling that no training on land can prepare you for. Speed can save you, stopping can kill you. Now add the stopping distance. At 21 knots with full astern engines engaged, a vessel of the Titanic's displacement requires between half a mile and a full mile to come to a complete stop. Some estimates based on sister ship Olympic sea trials put the figure closer to 3/4 of a mile. The Iceberg was spotted by lookout Frederick Fleet at a distance of roughly 500 meters, less than a third of a mile. Even if Murdoch had done everything perfectly, even if the engines had reversed instantaneously, Even if the rudder had performed flawlessly, the physics had already written the ending. This story is not about human failure. The great Scottish engineer William Froude, who developed the science of hull resistance in the 1860s and 1870s, had already established the mathematical relationship between hull size speed and water resistance. Froude's work on wave-making resistance, the energy a hull spends pushing water out of the way and then leaving it to crash back behind the stern, showed that resistance does not scale linearly with speed. It scales with the square of speed. Double your speed, and you quadruple your resistance, which means stopping at twice the speed requires 4 times the energy to be absorbed, not twice. The Titanic was traveling in the upper range of her designed speed. She was pushing through calm, flat, dark water that offered no visual warning of ice. And the physics of her own design, the very engineering that made her magnificent, made her almost impossible to stop in time. Other ships knew this. The liner SS Californian, sitting stationary roughly 10 to 20 miles from the Titanic that night, had stopped because her captain, Stanley Lord, had decided the ice conditions were too dangerous for speed. He chose stillness over schedule. His decision was criticized for different reasons in the aftermath, but his reading of the physics was sound. A stopped ship cannot have a stopping distance problem. A moving ship cannot escape one. This same physics, the tyranny of displacement and momentum, shapes every vessel that moves through water today. Modern supertankers, some displacing over 500,000 tons, require up to 10 kilometers to stop from full speed. They are sometimes navigated by pilots who board from small boats offshore because the ship itself cannot safely enter a port unassisted. The stopping distance alone makes port approach a carefully choreographed event, planned miles in advance, assisted by tugboats applying lateral force to guide a hull that could not break even if it wanted to. Container ships entering major ports like Rotterdam or Shanghai begin their deceleration sequences so far out at sea that passengers on a vessel nearby might not notice any change in motion. The engines reduce power by degrees. The hull begins its slow argument with momentum. The tugs come alongside. The whole operation is a negotiation with the same physics that sealed the Titanic's fate, just managed with more time, more data, and more distance. Modern vessels do have one tool the Titanic did not: bow thrusters. Transverse propeller tunnels built into the bow, running port to starboard, that allow a ship to push its own nose sideways without forward motion. They help, they are powerful, but they cannot stop a supertanker. They can only finesse the last 100 meters of a careful approach. The fundamental physics of displacement and momentum remains unchanged. It has been unchanged since the first heavy hull touched open water. What changed after 1912 was not the physics, it was the respect for it. In 1914, the International Ice Patrol was born, funded by the same nations whose ships had been racing through iceberg-laden waters as if momentum were optional. Speed through ice zones became something captains thought twice about. Bridge procedures tightened. The comfortable assumption that a ship magnificent enough could simply outrun the consequences of its own mass did not survive the North Atlantic. Something more honest replaced it. The Titanic was not the first ship to need that lesson. She will not be the last. The ocean is patient. It has been here longer than your hull, longer than your schedule, longer than your confidence in your own engineering, and the water you displace on the way forward is the same water that refuses to let you stop. You cannot break a ship. You can only begin stopping early enough that it does not matter. You gave the order, full astern, and the physics took 3/4 of a mile to hear you. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and share.